So in today's episode, I thought you might like a little behind the scenes to see what I'm thinking about for the new year and how maybe you can apply some of these lessons for your business and for all the content that you're creating for your courses. So let's jump in.
Welcome to the Course Creators HQ podcast, helping you navigate the latest techniques for creating and marketing online courses. And now, here is your host, Julie Hood.
So welcome to episode 121 of the Course Creators HQ podcast. And I'm so excited that you're here today. I'm actually using the last probably 6 weeks of the year to do a bunch of reorganizing, revamping. I was listening to a podcast over the weekend. They called it reinvention. I'm not sure I'd go that far, but just adding in some things that have been on the to-do list probably for the whole year. And I have been so busy either launching, teaching, or creating new courses all year that these things all kind of slid to the bottom of the list. And I realized for the new year, I needed to get some of these things taken care of. So one of the big questions that I'm asking, and I think it's a really important question that you should also ask yourself, is do I have enough long-term and short-term content that I'm sharing out into the web, into the universe? And so first I need to explain to you what I mean by that. So short-term content is the kind of content that you post and it has a very short life. So most of these things are social media posts. So, they get created. Usually somebody sees it within 24 hours or so. And then it may not get seen very much after that. It lives on in your account, but generally the sites don't reshare that information and it doesn't really get much activity for you going forward. So this is things like your Facebook posts, Instagram posts, Twitter posts, TikTok videos, even LinkedIn posts. You get that burst of activity when it happens, and then that's about it. So that's short-term content. Now, long-term content is those things that live on after you create them and continue to provide value to the people who are finding you. So it's things that they can stumble across, they find, they come to and get to listen to you, connect with you, that sort of thing. So, and typically with long-term content, the sites that are sharing this information, they tend to share more of the top content, the best content, rather than the most recently posted content. If you think about social media accounts, they tend to be the most recent posts. That's what you see when you go out and you go through your Facebook feed. You'll see the things that have been most recently posted. So a long-term content is things that feed the search engines. So for example, things like blog posts and podcasts, those are really, really good for the search engines because they live on, they find your link, and then whenever it's relevant, the search engines will share out the links to that content over and over again. Another one, the number 2 search engine on the planet is YouTube. So that gives you much more long-term content where people can come across your content years from now and still take action based on the video that they see. And then the number 3 search engine, and I just recently learned this, is actually Pinterest. So it is not necessarily a social media account. It is a search engine. So people go out, they're searching for things, and Pinterest will share the best content as opposed to the pins that were most recently shared. So you can see the difference between the short-term content and the long-term content. And so my question for Course Creators HQ was, how much long-term content am I creating, and do I have enough of it? Because especially once you get into this content creation after a while, you start noticing like, wow, this is taking time. This is using a lot of my efforts. And I want to make sure that when I'm doing this, the things I'm doing are actually getting value back to me, not just for 24 hours, for long term. So I'm going to share a couple of the things that I've decided to do and how I'm making this work so that I have a much more of the long-term content. I was noticing this especially because in general, Clubhouse tends to be short-term content. You know, you get on, you create a room, you host the room. Maybe some folks will listen to the replays if you're lucky, but unless you do some kind of repurposing of that room, reusing that either the content inside the room or reusing the actual audio, that tends to be it. So that's more in my short-term bucket. And one of the things that I realized is this past year is I tended to do a lot of the short-term bucket kind of content. So here's where I'm expanding for the year ahead. One of the things that I really like is that you can get a social media tool. I use one called Social Bee. I'll put the link in the show notes, but there's several of them that do this, and you want to look for this specific feature where you can create some kind of queue of content or like a bucket of content that it just keeps rerunning. So, for example, on there, I have a queue of, I think it's like 150 different posts for social media that are quote posts, like motivational kind of quotes. And I have those scheduled to run periodically during the week. They get posted out. And then because it's a queue, once it gets to the bottom of the queue, it goes back to the top and it reruns that content for me. So it just is automatically posting. Even if I'm not around to be posting on my social media accounts, that queue is running. So it gives me a little bit more of a long-term effect because the queue is running. So keep an eye out. I'll put the link in there if you want to check out Social Bee as a tool. There's some other ones if you come across them that will do something similar, and look for that queuing feature of your social media. And then the other thing that I've been doing long term is this podcast. You know, people go back. I got several emails this week from people who are binge watching and listening, not watching, listening to the entire podcast, all of the episodes, which thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm not sure I could listen to myself that long. But I do appreciate that you are doing that. So thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Sheldon. I appreciate you guys letting me know that you've done that and that it was helpful for you. So I do have that long-term content of the podcast. And then I also create blog posts for each podcast episode. So those live on my website. Google finds them and shares them. So I do have that long-term content going already. But the big holes that I noticed is I'm not on YouTube and I'm not on Pinterest. So those are at the top of the list for the year ahead. And I'm still trying to work out the best way to do this because video is just time consuming. Like, I have not found some really good ways to make it less time consuming. So that's also on the list, is figuring out how do I get more efficient? Where can I get some help with this? Where can I get my VA to help me out? So I'll let you know if I've come through some good secrets. I'm going to take a few YouTube courses and some training and just kind of see what I can come up with. So I'll let you know how that goes. And then Pinterest, Jana was actually on the podcast for last week's episode. That's episode 120, and she has her masterclass all about getting started on Pinterest. So I will link to that again and link to that episode if you want to check it out. But what I loved about what she said is that the things that you post on Pinterest are going to be this long-term content that's going to live for you for years and years and years. And so as you're putting together your content, yes, you want to be feeding the social media sites and staying top of mind to folks, but also make sure that you're getting enough of the long-term content out there so that you can be getting feedback and getting clicks, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now from the things that you're creating today. So one last little idea for more long-term content, if you're not quite ready to create your own podcast, is you can do guest podcasting. And it's one of the recommendations that I put high on the list for my accelerator students. Is it's a great way, use someone else's audience. They already have the podcast audience. Be a guest, share really good content, ask the guest to share your free lead magnet so that their listeners can then come over and get on your email list. And that can go on for years and years and years. Those podcasts will be out in the world and be out floating around, randomly sending you people for years ahead. So I hope this episode gave you some food for thought. And if you want to catch the links that I mentioned, you can go to coursecreatorshq.com/121 or check the show notes, and I'll give you the link to the social media tool that I use for queuing and to more information about Pinterest. And, we'll go from here. Let's see what works, hopefully, for the new year, so I can get some of these things in place and I can let you know how it goes. One of the things, though, that I am trying to set my expectations properly is it's not instant traffic. It's not like doing an ad where you turn it on and instantly you get hundreds or thousands of clicks through. It is very much of a long-term game for the long marathon kind of things, but I can see how this could pay off for me in the long term. So hopefully this gave you some food for thought about where you should be playing in the year ahead and which websites you want to be creating content for, and balancing out that long-term versus short-term content to make sure you've got enough of both. All right. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for subscribing or following if you're in Apple Podcasts. And thank you for reviewing. It really does help us get in front of more eyes and from more course creators so that they can find out what all we are doing and helping people get their courses out into the world. So thank you so much. Have an incredible week. I hope you are enjoying as we head into the holiday season, enjoying friends and family and getting to take a little bit of a break from the year. So thanks for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Take care.